On Christmas Eve 1945, the Sodder family home in West Virginia burned down. But when firefighters arrived at the scene, they didn't find any bodies. What happened to them? This is the Sodder children disappearance, and there are two very different theories about what may have happened. It all started one fateful evening. George and Jenny Sodder had put their 5 children, Louise, Jenny, Betty, Maurice, and Martha, to bed early because the next day was Christmas. A heavy snowstorm was raging outside, so the kids were feeling extra cozy inside their home on December. At around 8 p.m., a loud crash startled George from his chair. He raced into the hallway to find that the children's room was filled with smoke. As he ran to get the kids out of the burning building, he screamed for his wife, Jenny. But before she could come to her aid, the roof collapsed and the entire house went up in flames. At some point during the chaos, young Louis managed to escape the burning home and run to a neighbor's house. There, he banged on the door and told them, "My house is on fire and my brothers and sisters are still in there." The neighbor immediately called the local fire department, but for some reason they took over an hour to arrive at the scene. And when they did, they realized that the ladder truck had been taken somewhere else. So it wasn't until almost an hour after Louis' desperate escape that firefighters were able to start putting out the blaze. Meanwhile, as the house burned to the ground, George was desperately trying to find his children. He frantically searched through the neighborhood as well as the surrounding areas. He even drove to the local hospital, but no one was there. It seemed like the fire had consumed the children's lives. Or had it? Because as firefighters began to sift through the wreckage, something very strange happened. They didn't find any bones. You would think that if 5 people had died in a house fire, there would be some kind of remains, right? Well, in this case, there weren't. With no bodies found at the scene, speculation began to spread throughout the community. Did George kill his own children? Had the family run away to avoid debt collectors? Or, maybe the most frightening, had they been kidnapped? As the days turned into weeks, George and his wife refused to give up hope. They continued searching for their children and even placed ads in newspapers across the country offering a reward for any information. But as time passed, those hopes began to dwindle. Then, in January of 1946, the case took a mysterious turn. George received an anonymous phone call claiming that he knew where the children were. According to George, the man on the phone said that he worked for a certain Mr. Bruno and that the Sodder children were being held hostage by the mob. You see, George was known for being a bit of a troublemaker. He had gotten into several fights with local gangsters over the years, including Bruno's brother, Louis. In fact, just a few months prior, George had accused Louis of kidnapping one of his sons. However, this accusation had been dismissed by the police due to lack of evidence. Could it be that George's feud with the mafia had finally caught up with him? And had they taken his children in retaliation? The police were brought in once again to search the Sodder home, but this time they found nothing. As the investigation dragged on without any leads, rumors began to circulate throughout the town. That the family had staged the fire in order to collect on life insurance policies. Others insisted that the children were being held captive by a secret cult. With each passing day, more and more bizarre theories began to emerge, but none of them could be proven true. Then, in 1947, everything changed. George discovered a set of FBI documents that claimed his children were being held in a house on the outskirts of town. Armed with this new information, George convinced the FBI to conduct another search of the area. But as they dug through the dirt and debris, they came up empty-handed. Was there really something to this theory, or was it just another dead end? With the FBI investigation stalled, George took matters into his own hands. He hired a private investigator and continued searching for his children. And then, in 1949, the mystery took another shocking turn. A woman contacted the family claiming that she had seen the children being led onto a train by 2 men. She described the children, his clothing, and even remembered the number of the boxcar they had been taken away in. Armed with this new information, George went straight to the railroad station. He pulled up the manifest for that particular train and found the names of the two men who had taken the children. But by the time he got there, the train had already left the station. As the years went on, the case grew colder and colder. George never gave up hope. He continued searching for his children and even offered a $25,000 reward for any information leading to their whereabouts. Unfortunately, despite his efforts, the mystery only deepened. People began to wonder if the children were really alive. If so, why hadn't anyone come forward with information? And if they were dead, what had happened to their bodies? Even the FBI seemed stumped, as they had few solid leads to go off of. Was this case ever going to be solved, or would it remain a mystery forever? So here are two theories about what happened to the Sodder children. First, let's consider the logical explanation. The cover-up theory. When George and Jenny had moved to West Virginia, they quickly made enemies. Most of the townspeople saw George as a troublemaker and didn't trust him. In fact, many believed that he was involved in illegal activities. Could it be that his enemies had taken the children and covered up the crime? This theory seems plausible because of the numerous red flags that appeared during the investigation. For example, the fire department was slow to arrive at the scene, even though the call had come in over an hour earlier. And when they did arrive, the ladder truck was missing. These details suggest that someone had sabotaged the response time. And there's more. The phone lines to the house had been cut, which prevented Jenny from calling for help. Whoever was responsible for the fire had taken steps to ensure that the children would die. But why? Well, we may have an answer for that too. George had become an outspoken critic of organized crime in West Virginia. He had even gone so far as to threaten the local mob boss, Louis Bruno. Could it be that the mob had kidnapped the children in order to silence their father? This theory is supported by the fact that George received an anonymous phone call from someone claiming to know the children's whereabouts. It's possible that this person was part of the mob and was trying to send George a message. Of course, there's no way to know for sure what happened to the children. But this logical theory paints a grim picture of how they may have met their end. Now, on to theory number 2, the fantasy theory. Did the Sodder family fake their deaths? It sounds crazy, but hear me out. After the fire, George refused to accept that his children were dead. He spent the next several years searching for them and even offered a reward of $25,000 for any information. This suggests that he truly believed they were alive. In fact, there have been rumors circulating for decades that the family faked their deaths and started new lives under false identities. Some people even claim that they have photographic evidence to support this theory. But if this is true, why would the Sodders risk their reputations by faking their deaths? And what happened to the bodies? Well, according to some, the family was involved with a secret group that helped them escape from West Virginia after the fire. This group is said to have connections to both the government and organized crime. They allegedly helped the Sodders disappear and then covered up their crimes. Some believe that the Sodder children were actually taken to a secret location where they grew up under false identities. Others insist that they were put into protective custody to ensure their safety. There's also the possibility that the fire was started by the secret group as a way to eliminate witnesses or cover up their crimes. In this scenario, the children were killed, but their bodies were never found because they were secretly disposed of. While this theory may seem far-fetched, it does explain why George never gave up hope. If the family had staged their deaths, he would have had no reason to believe that they were dead. Plus, there have been numerous reports of people claiming to have seen the children as adults. Of course, these sightings cannot be verified, but they do add fuel to the conspiracy theory. What do you think happened to the Sodder children? Was it an accident or a plot? Comment your theory below, and the best answer will get a dedicated video. And while you're at it, make sure to hit the like button for more mystery videos. Thanks for watching.